Hi, good evening, everybody. Welcome to Community Focus here on Channel 6 TV. November 6th is coming your way, and that's your day to stand up and have your voice as to what you want to see going on in government. And one of the things that we want to do is keep you informed and educated as to people you can vote for. We've got a gentleman been here a while, has been doing this job for just a little bit, and he wants you to consider him once again. That's our Nelson County Coroner, Field Houghlin. Field, first of all, welcome to show today.
Thanks, Kenny. I appreciate you having me.
I know you stay busy in your private business, but you also stay always on call on this business as a coroner.
Well, it is. I've been doing this a long time. Dr. Charles Spalding appointed Sonny Green when I back in 1977, so I started out as a deputy and then got to be the coroner. You know, I'm running for my 4th term, and I have the distinction of being a master coroner, which is the highest level you can be in the coroner system through the Justice Department. So the people of Nelson County, the citizens of Bardstown, Nelson County have been very receptive of what we've tried to do at the coroner.
Well, I know a lot of people, when they think of the coroner, they say, well, you're the guy that shows up, determines if somebody's dead, and basically the cause of death, but it goes a lot further than that. I mean, it's more, you also get into the law enforcement, investigative. I mean, it's from what I'm hearing of things that you've done over just the last few years, it's pretty detailed.
Well, you kind of work hand in hand. You know, the police are a lot more knowledgeable and skilled in try to determine what happened to some of these folks, you know. But we have the resources through the Justice Cabinet, through having pathological studies done. And, you know, the downside of that is we can have an autopsy performed and we can get the body released, but usually sometimes it goes 6, 8, maybe 10 weeks before I get a final report back from our family. Yeah. And it's always kind of discouraging because, you know, they want to know what happened to their loved one, and you try to be as thorough as you can be and give them what they need to know in regard to what happened to their loved one.
Well, we obviously, and we'll get into this in a few minutes, but we've had a rash of things going on in Nelson County over the years. But one of the things I hear about all the time is evidence, because people have to have evidence, and you're one of the first people on the scene when you get there. And securing evidence and making sure things are the way they should be is pretty important responsibility.
Well, I have 2 good deputies, Lenny Mudd and Brian Pappenfuss, that helps me out at the funeral home. And we try to do what we're supposed to do, and, you know, we haven't had too many complaints that I know of. The only thing that my opponent has said, oh, it's a conflict of interest. But, you know, it's also a savings to the citizens of Nelson County, because Nelson County is a growing community and growing county. But on the other hand, it's not like you have coroner's cases every day. Up to this point, I've had 150 this year. And I have a refrigeration out at my funeral home. I have 2 vans that I use for the coroner's office. And my opponent, and I'm not trying to get into negative publicity or anything like that, but he wants to put a coroner's office somewhere outside of a funeral home. And, you know, somebody has to pay for that, Kenny. And what I see is if he's elected, then the citizens of Nelson County, if he has this vision or dream, then, you know, somebody's going to have to pay for it. It's not a free lunch.
So are you eating the cost on that right now, basically, as far as refrigeration, all that kind of stuff?
Right. If I have to use my refrigeration unit, the county reimburses me $50 a day. And then if I have an autopsy that I have to take up to Louisville, then I get paid $275 to do whatever I need to do about an autopsy report and things like that.
Now, you on call 24 hours a day, or how's that work?
We're on call 24 hours a day, just like at the funeral home. You know, if you call my funeral home number, somebody's going to answer that phone 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. This is a job, you either like it or you hate it. And I grew up in the funeral business with my dad and mother over at Bloomfield, and I've tried to do what I'm supposed to do. And my daddy always said, if you treat everybody the way you'd like to be treated, you'll be fine.
Well, it's got to be a tough job, because I know you and I've talked off the air and different things. Some of the, I hate to use the word gruesome, but some of the things you've come upon in the last, you've got to be either developed a tough skin to this, or just, it's got to be affecting you some way or another, man.
Well, you know, there's not very many things, Kenny, that I haven't seen. And you know, we have car accidents where children lose their lives. We had one out here on the Bluegrass Parkway, and this little girl from up at Harrisburg lost her life. The situations we've had with these homicides that we haven't determined, you know, who did this. But yeah, it's a tough situation.
Yeah.
It's a tough situation. And I don't think you ever get used to it, but you have to realize that you're trying to do a job to the best of your ability. And, you know, everybody has feelings, and sometimes you take those feelings home with you.
Yeah.
And, but, you know, it's been a career that I've wanted to do and wanted to pursue, and I've tried to do it to the best of my ability.
Now, what's more important in this? Training, experience, or just?
Well, first of all, you have to run for office and be elected.
Uh-huh.
And then after that, you have to take what is called a basic training, which is 40 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And then after you do that, in each year you have to go back for 18 hours of continuing education. And I've had the courses so many times, you know, I can almost teach them myself. The instructors are always laughing, you know, that you know, when you get a certificate number, I was number 52 when they started doing the training. My certificate number is 52, so it shows I've been doing this a long time.
Yeah. So again, coroner, a lot of people don't realize it's, I think it's one of the highest, if not the highest, elected official in the county, because you've got such, people just, I don't think they realize the tremendous responsibility that goes with that to determine if something is, say, a suicide or a homicide. I mean, something just as, we think it's clear cut, but it's not as clear cut as we think it is.
Well, and then we even have to sign off now on authorization for a cremation. You know, I'm responsible because when somebody's cremated, you're not getting the body back. So we call with the doctor or whoever the situation may be to make sure that the person died from natural causes, or, you know, wasn't murdered or some homicide, which we wouldn't not sign off on it until we had an autopsy or something done. But yeah, there's more to it other than just going out there and say, well, that person is deceased.
Well, you're seeing a lot of things going on too in the changes in Nelson County. I know I saw you on a TV show a few weeks ago talking about the opioid crises, and that's increasing. Well, if nothing else, it's increasing your business considerably because a lot of people are not surviving that.
No, it's an epidemic that is not only taking over Nelson County, it's everywhere, Kenny Fogle. I talked to other coroners in different counties, and it's everywhere. It's all over the state of Kentucky. Last year I had 228 coroners cases. Not all of them were drug related, but you know, the drugs are horrible. It's a horrible situation that the people of Nelson County and the state of Kentucky have to deal with, and it's everywhere.
So I'll just give you an example. I've heard some horror stories of some coroners in different parts of the state. Some people, you know, one guy I believe is a grocer. I mean, he doesn't have any. I guess he's got the training you're talking about, but he really doesn't have the background in law enforcement. So how important is it to have a what you say, a qualified, credible coroner in your county?
Well, you know, this day and time, the way things are, you never know what you're dealing with and who you're dealing with. There are a lot of people that moved into Nelson County that I used to know everybody around. Yeah. And now, just like you, there's a lot of people that we don't know. And you have to protect that innocent person that is deceased because you're responsible for that person that you're removing from that scene. You're responsible for their belongings, their personal effects. I'm responsible for all of that. And I take responsibility to do that. And I try to do what I'm supposed to do.
Well, I know we watch all these CSI things on television, and everything gets wrapped up in an hour, and like you said, sometimes it takes a little longer than that.
Yeah, and that's the thing that I try to tell people. You know, people have come to think CSI is real. CSI is not real. It's a TV show, Kenny, and when they solve cases and get results back from tests that they've performed in 10 or 15 minutes or a half hour, that's not the real world.
So even when you send a body off to get to a lab or something of that nature, that is still your responsibility to some degrees, or do you turn that responsibility over to somebody else?
No, when we take the body up to the medical examiner's office in Louisville, I'm responsible for that body. Now, they don't necessarily have to use my funeral home. They can use another funeral home if they, you know, if the family desires. But we take what is called a burial transit permit, and we'll put the name of the individual and me as the coroner or one of my deputies, whoever worked that case. Yeah. And then that way we would be responsible for signing the death certificate whenever we get the results back from the autopsy report. Okay. They do toxicology. We can get the tox back quicker than we can get the final report back. The tox lab is up in Indianapolis, Indiana, so they send us a report back initially, but then they tie their toxicology report in with the autopsy report, which is the pathological study, and then the medical examiner gives us a final result. And that's what takes so long, 6, 8, 10 weeks sometimes.
Now, getting, as we mentioned earlier, there have been several tragic incidents in Nelson County over the last several years. And again, you're the first one on the scene. And I guess you have to make an opinion sometime, but it's not an official statement. But can you tell pretty much when you walk up to a scene what's happened there, and how much of this, doing this for many years, does your law enforcement side take effect, and you sort of like, I know what happened here?
Well, you do, but you never assume anything.
Right.
If you're not sure about a person's death, or you're not comfortable in deciding which way you think it is, then you always have these folks up at Louisville at the ME's office that you can call and rely on their expertise.
Yeah.
They're pathologists, and if I'm not sure about something, or if Lenny's not sure, or Brian's not sure, then instead of going into a question, I'm responsible to sign out a death certificate where it's natural, or suicide, or homicide. And a lot of times people have accidental insurance. They'll have a policy that will have a clause in there that, and if I sign off as a natural, I've got to be sure what is what it is, because I don't want to infringe in some family losing some benefits. If it is, if somebody gets killed in an automobile accident, it's accidental. But you have to cross all your T's and dot all your I's.
Is drug overdose considered accidental, or would that be or is that a gray line there?
Most of the time they're accidental, because the person that does that drug doesn't.
They didn't intend to die.
He didn't intend to die. But most of them, we rule, are accidental.
I didn't know that. I'm just curious. Like I said, I'm learning as much here today as anybody else. Well, if there, like I said, November 6th is election day. Is there anything you need to let the voters know about Field Houghlin before we?
I think everybody in Nelson County knows who I am and where I've been. I've been doing this for 40 plus years, and I've appreciated all the support that the voters have given me in the past. And I've tried to do this to the best of my ability. I think what I'm doing is a savings to the citizens of Nelson County. My opponent started out early in the campaign saying it was a conflict of interest. Well, he took me to the ethics board, and they didn't even hear the complaint. They said it was meaningless.
Is this common throughout the state as far as?
Oh, over in Washington County, Freddie Carey's the coroner. In Marion County, Bullitt County, Dave Billings is the coroner. LaRue County, Todd Skaggs is. In these rural outlying counties, it's just not feasible for counties to have a coroner's office, because somebody's got to man it, somebody's got to be there, you've got to be responsible. And it's not feasible for the rural areas of Kentucky. But I appreciate you all inviting me to come out here and do this interview, and if the voters are willing to elect me for another 4 years, I'll try to do it 4 more years. And I do say, and I say this with all sincerity, every county in Kentucky has a drug problem, and it's a big, big issue that we need to address, work with our police, work with our legislature, and try to get some help for these folks, because it's not only a problem, it's a sickness that these folks are dealing with, and it's a tough problem that we have. All
right, well, appreciate you taking the time to come out here today. I know you're busy, and so November 6th, Field Houghlin running for Nelson County Coroner, been coroner for a little while now, and won your vote again. So Field, thank you for being here today. Thank you for tuning in. Stick around, a lot more to come here on Channel 6 TV. We'll be back after these few words from our sponsor. Thank you.